Hey there, welcome to the Time Hacks for Homeschoolers Masterclass. I'm Kim Sorges with Not Consumed Ministries, and I'm super excited to share with you 8 of my favorite ways to beat the clock when it comes to managing your homeschool. First, though, let me give you a glimpse into how I became a master time hacker. Growing up, I absolutely loved school, so much so that I actually played school for fun. Maybe you did too. So it won't surprise you that I earned my master's in early childhood and curriculum development, and then I spent 10 years in the classroom before I had my first baby. 4 years later, here they are. This year I have one high schooler, 2 middle schoolers, and a 4th grader that I've homeschooled since the beginning. Now, before you think that's an easy task for a former teacher, trust me, it's not. In fact, former teachers usually have more problems with homeschooling than not because we have so much classroom ingrained in us and it's hard to get it out. Not to mention, we've had 2 major life events that have made it even more. First, when my oldest child was in the 2nd grade, my husband decided that family life wasn't for him, leaving me to figure out how to homeschool while juggling 2 young elementary kids, a toddler and a newborn. As a result, I started Not Consumed blog as a way to support my family and be able to stay home with them and homeschool. So yes, I work and the kids sometimes park sticker cars on my back. Seriously, it's one of the biggest blessings and yet also very challenging to manage, as you can imagine. Then, nearly 2 years ago, my youngest son was diagnosed with a brain tumor, spending over a month in the hospital and 1.5 years in weekly chemo treatments. So as you can imagine, I've gotten quite good at hacking time so we can get all of the necessary things done. So let's dig into some of my favorite hacks. Number 1, keep learning simple. The goal here is exactly what it sounds like. The more simple you can leave things, the more time you're going to have. I suggest using a guideline something like this. When your kids are pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade, focus on reading and addition and subtraction facts. No, you don't need 25 textbooks or workbooks for these young kids, even though you'll see them for sale in the vendor hall, right? You don't necessarily need that. Focus on these 2 main things, and then if you have time here and there, you can fit in the other things, but these are the 2 things that you need to focus on the most. And then 2nd through 6th grade, again, we're focusing on strong reading. We're going to take the foundation we built and we're going to use that in other subjects, which I'll show you a little bit later. And then again, we're focusing on basic math skills. That's it. I want you to remember as we go forward that history and geography and science and Latin and Spanish and all of those extra things are not listed here because that's not the simplest form of learning. That doesn't mean they can't fit in and that you may never do them, but remember that this is your focus. And when you have days and moments and times when this is all you can get in, then this is all you get in, and that's great. Okay, then 7th through 8th grade, we begin to add in writing and history and science as a regular subject in our day. But that doesn't mean, again, that we don't do any writing, history, or science before that. We do. It just kind of fits in with other stuff, and it's not a focus. Once you get into the 9th grade, your state standards are going to pretty much dictate what you're going to learn and how that's going to look, so I didn't list those here. The bottom line is, don't do more than you have to do with those little kids, especially, Mom, if you have a bunch of little ones. This is a time when you need to be focusing on changing diapers and keeping kids from drawing Sharpie markers on the wall, right? If you have just 1 or 2 kids in the pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade range, you cannot do 17 subjects per child. It's just not possible because you have these other things that you're doing. Let it happen naturally as your child grows. Then the list of things, the level of learning grows naturally. Trust me, if you don't do anything actually with your younger children, it's still going to be fine. In fact, both of my boys, for various reasons, didn't actually do any kind of formal schooling at all until the 1st grade. Both are significantly above level. So it's okay not to do anything written in those ages. It's okay to step back and be as simple as possible. It will save you an incredible amount of time too. 2 tips for this hack. Number 1, you probably already do, but just in case you don't, here's your reminder to use your library. It's an incredible resource for making learning simple. Okay, another tool that I use for this is called the Reading Journal. This is actually a curriculum that I developed for ages second grade through 8th grade. And the goal here is to allow kids to pick their own books. And so once they've learned how to read well, my kids move into this and they use it every single year from 2nd grade until, basically about the 8th grade. Each day they choose a book and then they complete one lesson. That's half of a page that you see right here. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, but the goal is to help them to think harder about what they're reading, to develop skills, language arts skills that they need as they're thinking about what they're reading, instead of just reading for comprehension, and that's a lot. Instead of just reading for word calling, and that's a lot of times what kids will do, is just simply read to say that they have done the work, but really we want them to understand that we read for comprehension. We read for a purpose, to understand, to enjoy, to learn something. And so this curriculum actually does that for them. It also enables my kids to be able to learn about science and social studies and history, which is social studies, in different languages and different things, and just all kinds of interests that they might have, because they can literally go to the library and read anything at all that they want to read and then just complete the assignment. So it's a wonderful mix. Number 2, teach kids together. So often I meet homeschool moms who are teaching each one of their children each subject separately every single day. Mom, you don't have time for this, I promise. Even if you only have a handful of children, 1 or 2 or maybe even 3, this is consuming you. It's just not a very wise way to use your time. Here's some practical ways that we teach kids together. Subjects that are really good for this: science, history, Bible, but really the sky is the limit. Possibly not reading, possibly not math, but outside of that, pretty much everything else can be taught together, especially when your children are 8th grade and under. Generally in our home, 8th grade and under, everything is together except for reading and math. We younger kids will listen and draw as we're doing these things together. The older kids might read the things aloud. They might be the ones to do some extra research or write. They might even do a project that then the younger kids sit and listen to as they're presenting. And so then everybody's learning at the same time. Great tools or curriculum for this would be Apologia. They have their science curriculum and their worldview curriculum are both really excellent for this because they span the age level. Mystery of History is a great history program that does this. It's actually laid out specifically to do this. We have a missionary curriculum called To Every Nation. I'll show you here in a minute that we love that will help you with this. You can do Bible studies like this. You can do, and classical conversations is another one. So just to show you kind of how this would work, when we work together, we read the story about the missionary, and then, we might work together on the timeline or learn something about the geography of the place that this missionary is from, and then we would complete the Bible lesson page. And each one of my kids would do this on a different level. So if I had a kindergarten, 1st grader, they might just have their own little spiral bound notebook. I love to do that with the younger ones. Give them a spiral bound notebook, let them color and draw as they listen and learn, right? That's plenty. As they get into 2nd grade or so, they can start filling out the pages themselves. As they're older, they might actually be reading the stories, the To Every Nation, the Christian Heroes Then and Now, stories that go along with each missionary. It's not necessary to do that. However, it's a great supplement to make this a year-long curriculum that your family is studying. The older ones also can, read directions to younger ones and kind of help them think through what they're doing. So this is how we use something like this as a whole family. Hack number 3, teach subjects together. So we just talked about teaching children together. Now we're going to talk about teaching subjects together. The sweet spot of making the kids together and the subjects together is a time hack your friends will all be jealous of. Okay, I'm teasing. But it will be such a difference in your homeschool if you can get both of these as optimized as possible. So let's look at the subjects. Basically what I mean is we'll use Knotgrass as an example. This is a history curriculum that we use in high school. And my high schooler loves Knotgrass history so much. And part of the reason for that is it provides so much all in one book. She gets one English credit, she gets one history credit, and she gets one Bible credit for every single year that she does this. Also, the thing that she loves about it is that if she's learning world history, she's doing world literature, it's all together. It's seamless. It makes sense and it's connected, and it makes those natural connections in her head. This is another example. This is our brand new curriculum called Still Singing. It is designed to help kids learn about music theory and the story behind hymns. It can cover language arts. If your child is reading the hymn story themselves, there is a page to help them to record information out of there. So you get the history of it, you get the writing from that, you get music theory from that, and then we even have extension pages that give them other activities that they can do to take it and stretch it a little bit further. Oh, in addition to the Bible lesson. So it's kind of one in everything. It's fantastic. It's, can be used from kindergarten all the way up through 8th grade. So it's another one of those sweet spot kind of curriculum that you can use with all of your kids and with multiple subjects. Hack number 4, plan once a year. Now, this sounds too good to be true, but it's not. In fact, it's the way you should be doing things. You only really need to plan once a year. Let me show you how I do it. So the first thing I do is I determine the days that you will have school, and I literally count them. I use this homeschool calendar that you see on the screen. This is a form that's found in the student record and planner that we have, but you can also create one. My goal is to sit down with each date and then highlight when we're going to have school. Now, this is not hard and fast. No one's going to hold me to this. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen, right? However, ideally, I want to be as accurate as possible so I can get the best idea. Once you've highlighted the days that you're going to have, go ahead and count them to make sure that you have what you're expecting. Even if you don't have to make a certain number, you still want to know about how many days you're going to have school, because that's going to come into play with your curriculum. So the next step is you're going to use the educational snapshot. Basically on this piece of paper, and this is also located in the student record and planner, but again, you can make your own, you're going to record the curriculum for each subject. So in one box, you might write math, and then you might write whatever you're using. So I might write teaching textbooks, math 5, and then I might write extra math. And that is actually a website that we use for extra math. So I would put both of those things there. The extra math website does review of facts, and it's really awesome. It's free too. And then I would, in the next box, do the next subject, do each one. Once you've written all of your subjects down, you want to note the number of lessons for each one of these subjects, if applicable. So let's say teaching textbooks, for example, might have 140 lessons or 120 lessons or whatever, depends on the level. Write those down. And then you're going to divide the number of lessons by the number of school days that we figured out on the first page. Remember this one? That will help us to know how often we are going to do that subject. For example, if I need to do, let's say if I have 100 days of school, just to make it easy, and I have 110 math lessons, that means that I need to do one math lesson every single day, and on 10 days of school, I'm going to need to do 2 math lessons if I want to be done with the whole curriculum. Now, I will caution you, you don't have to finish the whole curriculum ever. It's okay to have the last 20% of any curriculum unfinished because you're going to review the next year. Even if you don't finish the whole thing, you still want to do this so that you have a general idea. You might be surprised to learn that you only need to do, science 3 days a week or 2 days a week in order to get the number of lessons done that you are expecting. Now, if a curriculum doesn't have lessons, that's fine. All you need to do is decide how many pages. Let's say you want to read Charlotte's Web. how many pages are in that book, okay? And let's say you want to have it finished in 30 days, do the math, right? You can do that by saying, we'll assign novels. We'll say, we want to read 7 or 8 novels this year, which means we need to read, 1 a month and skip December or, something like that. It really helps to plan this out and know, but also you don't have to plan later if you've already done this work at the beginning. Even if you need to be flexible, that's totally okay. Then we use the weekly checklist. Basically on the weekly checklist, we have the subjects down the center you see there, and then we have the day of the week and the grade. Each child, each day, will check off the subject as they've done it. They also might note a lesson number, like they might put L5 for lesson 5 for math, or they might put Q5 for quiz number 5 for math, whatever it is. If it's something that doesn't really have lessons, we just use a check mark. If it's something that has actual lesson numbers, we actually put lesson numbers in there. That way, if we take a break for a couple weeks or something happens and you don't get to it, you can come right back and you can see on your weekly checklist what lesson you did last. And that just makes it easier. And it's just a good reference. We do not use a grade book at all. So this is our grade book, and this just helps us to know what we did when. I will note, by the way, that this is an example sheet of different kinds of subjects you might do. This is not necessarily the subjects that we do every single day. So don't panic when you see all that and thinking, oh, we do all of that. No, we don't. Next to the day of the week, we have a grade. I assign a grade to everything. It might be a smiley face or a star. It might be a check mark for completion, or it might be an actual grade, depending on how old the child is and stuff like that. So that's how we use the weekly checklist to help not have a lesson plan book, but also to not have to plan every single day. I'll tell you, with the lesson plan book, I found that I spent more time on Sunday night erasing and moving stuff that I had hoped to get done than I did actually planning what I had hoped to get done. It just didn't make any sense. So I realized most curriculum, the next thing makes sense. You just do the next thing the next day, right? So if you plan in advance to get things done by a certain amount of time, or in a certain amount of time, or a certain number of pages done at a certain time, then it's very easy to just know, and you can note this in the educational snapshot page for your students. You need to do 1 lesson per day, or you need to read 10 pages of your, science curriculum per day, or whatever it is. And that makes it really easy to know what to do every single day without mom having to come in and say, hey, let me see what you need to do today. Like, you don't need to do that. It's right here on the checklist. Hack number 5, change the way you schedule. When I first started homeschooling, this was my schedule. Do you see those crazy boxes? Yeah, it was awfully crazy. Traditional scheduling is not effective in homeschooling. This is the kind of scheduling where you schedule every moment of every day. Those were 15-minute blocks per every child, every person in my family. Each one of us had things that we were supposed to get done every 15 minutes. And what happens is real life happens and you don't get those things done in that 15-minute block, and then everything gets thrown off. That's why it's not effective for homeschool, because real life happens in our house. It really does happen that the UPS man comes and he has a chat with your kids and you really enjoy that. Okay, now your homeschool is off by 15 minutes. Is that the end of the world? Well, for me, before I moved away from traditional scheduling, it really was the end of the world, because I couldn't get back on track when something like that happened, or when the neighbor lost the dog and asked us to help them find it, or when a child has an ear infection and we need to go to the doctor's office and they will only see them at 9:30 in the morning, right in the middle of homeschool, right? So instead, we moved to chunking. Basically, chunking is mixing a routine with a general time frame. So we have chunks for each period of the day. So the morning chunk, for example, we have this routine. First we do quiet time, then we have breakfast, and then we have chores. So each one of those things happen in the morning chunk in that order, regardless of what time our morning starts. So if we get up at 6 in the morning, we're going to have quiet time, breakfast, and chores. If we get up at 9, quiet time, breakfast, and chores. If we get up at 7:30 because it's co-op day, quiet time, breakfast, chores. You get the idea? It doesn't matter what time it is. We know that those are the things that we're going to do. And then we have a school chunk, which begins with a family devotion, a Bible study, and then we work on our checklist. We have a lunch chunk. We prepare the lunch, we have a family read aloud, we clean up, and then we each have a lunch chore. Pretty simple. This is our afternoon chunk. We would turn in our checklist, and then we might have any of these following activities: extracurricular things, screen time, outside time, appointments, etc. And then this is our evening chunk. Now, here's the beauty of it. Let's say you wake up in the morning and your son has an ear infection. You call the doctor. They say, okay, bring Johnny in at 9:45, which is the worst time ever for a homeschooler because that's the middle of your homeschool day. And now you feel like you've ruined your day. Well, you haven't. It's the school chunk and the afternoon chunk that often can be swapped, that might end up being swapped in this case, because I'm going to be at the doctor. So we go to the doctor, do our appointment time, and then we come home. We can still get our school chunk time done because we're not locked into a certain time frame in the day. We know what to do when it's time to do school. We're going to do these 3 things. We're going to get it done, right? This is just a sample of what our schedule kind of looks like because I know people really like to see it. I want to warn you, there are times on here, but these are ideal time frames that these chunks might happen. These are not hard and fast, unbreakable rules, okay? And the left-hand side, that would have been my middle schoolers. This schedule's a little from a little while back. And then on the right-hand side would have been my elementary boys. So on the right-hand side, you'll notice they go to co-op 2 days a week, and then you'll see the morning chunk where it happens, and then the school chunk where it happens, and then you'll see where we would fit in lunch and piano and free chunk and just those kinds of things. I also want to point out that on Friday, at that time, we didn't do school at all on Fridays. So we managed to get everything else into the 4 days, which means on Friday, really, we just have a morning chunk, and it was usually much later than the other days. That's pretty awesome. You'll notice on the boys' schedule, they only have 1 day that they go to the co-op that we were using at the time, and they actually had 2 afternoons where they were with a babysitter, and that was for me so that I could work. I know there are a lot of moms who homeschool who also need to work, so I thought it would be beneficial to show you sometimes that's the way the schedule works. And we just made sure that school was done before I needed to work, especially on those days, as much as possible. Hack number 6, let someone else do the teaching. Yeah, I really said that. You know, you're not the only teacher around here. In fact, often homeschoolers are caught up with the idea that they have to be the only teacher because they homeschool, and that's what homeschool means. No, it doesn't. Homeschool just means you're the one in control, right? It means you're not putting your kids in the system. But that doesn't necessarily mean no one else is teaching your child. Here are some ideas. You might choose a virtual school or a co-op group. You might choose to have an older sibling help or teach your younger children. You might hire a mother's helper. This, my friends, is golden. If you know other homeschool families with girls between the ages of 12 and 15 especially, they are so helpful. They can come in the afternoon. They can do some teaching sometimes, and they're very eager to do so. And a lot of times they won't even charge you anything because basically they're in training anyway. They're needing experience so they can later on do babysitting and things like that. So super, super helpful thing to use, especially for homeschool families. You might do something like teaching textbooks. I mentioned that we do that. It does the teaching for me. Apologia Online has live classes. It also has recorded classes that your students can attend. You might do BJU Press Online or Monarch. Both of those are full curriculum online that you can do with your kids. You might do courses like Experience Astronomy is one of my favorites. It's written by Luke Gilkerson, or taught mostly by Luke Gilkerson from Intoxicated on Life. It is such a fun program. One of my girls did the program 2 years ago, I think it was now, and absolutely loved it. Just absolutely loved having him teach and learn, and he's excited about astronomy, and that's really fun. It's an online class. We didn't have to go anywhere, and I didn't have to teach anything, which was really good for me because I don't know anything about astronomy, right? So that's another option. And by the way, I'll have links to all of these things below the video so that you can check them out. Hack number 7, train them for independent learning. I cannot stress this one enough. And I wish I had time to totally teach you how to do this, but I do have another video that you can watch later that will be linked in the notes as well. But here's the premise. You can't be everything all the time, or you will be nothing all the time. You can't be anything of use if you're exhausted all the time and you're totally consumed by all the things that you have to do. Your job as mom is to be the manager. You are the manager of your home. And the manager, generally speaking, is not the one handing out the fries and the soda at the drive-thru, right? The manager is delegating. The manager is coordinating and overseeing everything that happens. That means all the people in your house have to be helping. Now, that's a subject for another time, doing the chores and all that kind of stuff. But it also means they need to be teaching themselves as much as humanly possible. I have a link to an entire another hour-long video helping you teach your kids how to learn independently that you can check out if you want more information on that. Hack number 8, teach wherever you have to be. This is something we learned big time in the hospital. And it proved to be such an effective way to help my kids really anytime. And I wish that I had done it for so many other times in our lives. Have a backpack for your kids available and ready with supplies. Okay, this is especially useful if your life is in transition of any kind. If you're moving, if you're remodeling, if you have a sick parent that you're taking care of, if you have a sick child or chronic illness in your family, or if you just have a lot of kids and you end up spending a lot of time in the doctor's offices, for whatever, this is such a helpful thing. If you've got the supplies in there, then when you wake up in the morning, if you need to very quickly get to the doctor, have everybody throw their stuff in the backpack, off you go, teach in the doctor's office. You're going to be there waiting for hours anyway, right? Make use of that time. Be ready so you can make use of that time. I know a lot of people who have used this method when they've been with parents that are sick and need someone to sit with them. They'll have their kids bring the backpacks and come and sit alongside grandma or grandpa and learn some stuff. But your kids still need to kind of learn. You can actually do both. I would definitely say focus on family because family is so important and the learning will come. But if you have your backpacks ready, you can grab those things and you can learn when you have the opportunity to. It's such a wonderful, wonderful way to maximize your time. Okay, let's review our 8 methods. We have keep learning simple, teach kids together, teach subjects together, and remember, the sweet spot is to teach kids and subjects together, both. Number 4, plan only once a year. No more of this 2 hours on Sunday night stuff. Number 5, change the way you schedule. Number 6, let someone else do the teaching. Number 7, train your kids to learn independently. And I'd add to that, train them to do some chores too. Trust me, that's a good thing. And we have a free printable that will help you with that too. Number 8, teach wherever you have to be. Okay, so I hope that this was super helpful to you and that you learned a lot of good tips and hacks. Be sure to leave a comment if you have any questions. Again, I will have notes below this for all the different resources that I mentioned that you can find them and get what you need. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.